Isn't it weird how the topic of leg training turns every gym bro into a philosopher? Suddenly, it's,
if I externally rotate my feet and point my toes exactly 17 degrees out to the side, will my quads magically double in size?
or
Maybe if I train my calves more, nobody will notice the cripply insecurity behind these eyes.
leg training really is not that complicated, or at least it doesn't need to be.
No! God, please, no!
Cut the overthinking, bin the Instagram hacks, sack off the TikTok experts preaching viral booty building tricks, and focus on what really works. So what if there was a balanced leg session that targeted everything you needed to target, all in a single workout? Well, grab a pen, sit down, and take some notes, because this is the only leg workout that you will ever need. First on the list, we have a lying leg curl. And the first question you can ask me is, Harry, why choose a lying leg curl? The reason for that is going to be presented shortly. But ultimately, the lying leg curl trains the hamstrings in their shortened position. And due to the fact that knee flexion is the primary action occurring here, all heads of the hamstring will be targeted, specifically putting a bit more emphasis towards the distal region of the hamstrings, which is going to be the region closer to the knee. And when adopting or implementing this movement into your workout plan, one of the big things we want to focus on is ensuring that we fully get into that shortened range, which is going to be when your heels closer or touching the bum. Oftentimes people may flail around a bit here and really neglect the full range of motion, but in neglecting the full range of motion, you're failing to actually take the movement into the shortened range, which is a range in which you're trying to place more emphasis on, thus kind of defeating the purpose or choice of implementing this movement to begin with. And if for whatever reason, as this does happen sometimes, you're feeling your calves take you over quite a lot, that's okay and that is normal. The calves, especially the gastrocnemius, are largely responsible for the first 15 degrees of knee flexion, so the first kind of few inches of the movement from straighten to a slight bend. If this is occurring, what you can do is either skip that range entirely and cut ROM a little bit short and not fully extend the knee, or what you can do instead is go through that initial range to the first 15 degrees of knee flexion a little bit slower before then exploding into that shortened range and kicking the bum once the calf involvement has reduced. Now we're on to the leg extension, a staple for most leg workouts, especially when you are doing a leg workout that targets what needs to be targeted. The quad is kind of split into 4 regions, 4 muscles, 4 heads, whatever you want to call it. And ultimately, one of the muscles is what we call a biarticular muscle, which is a muscle that crosses at 2 joints, and that's called the rectus femoris. This muscle is only adequately worked when extending the knee, as when you are doing a squat pattern, for example, because of it being a multi-joint movement, although yes, you are shortening the quads at the knee because they're going through knee extension, you're also lengthening the rec fem at the hip because it crosses 2 joints. Therefore, its respective length is not changing, thus limiting how much stimulus it's going to experience throughout that movement. Therefore, the only way to effectively actually target the rec fem is by doing a knee extension isolation movement, such as a leg extension. Due to the fact that knee extension is the primary action here, all of the muscles of the quads are going to be targeted effectively, which is bloody fantastic if you ask me, thus really milking the term bang for your buck. And like the lying leg curls, this is also a shortened position movement. There's also an argument here that a lot of muscles may fatigue first in their shortened range, therefore it may make sense to do shortened position dominant movements such as a lying leg curl or a leg extension earlier in the workout rather than later in the workout. The hip thrust, here we go, this is what everybody is waiting for. Something that I haven't built throughout my life, but something I'm going to teach you how to build, is a juicy bottom. And again, a hip thrust or glute bridge, whatever you want to choose here, is a fantastic movement at targeting the glutes, specifically again in the shortened range. And the glutes have fantastic leverage to extend the hips, so this is a range or a movement we can load very heavy. And the key thing here you'll note is I'm using a machine. You can use a machine, a Smith machine, a barbell, whatever suits you, but you'll probably never see me use a dumbbell because quite frankly, you can probably hip thrust far more weight than you think you can, and I can assure you your gym is not going to have dumbbells heavy enough for that, and if it does, you're not going to be able to put those dumbbells on your hips. Therefore, you're just limiting the gains or the progress or stimulus you're going to experience from this movement. So it's very key to choose a pattern of hip thrust, like I said, machine or barbell, that you can load effectively and heavy enough. And the big thing here, a bit harder with the machine, but more relevant to a barbell variation, is trying to keep the shins as vertical as possible. The foot plate of this machine is angled, hence why there is going to be a shin angle occurring here. Essentially, the more angled the shin is, means the more emphasis is being placed on other muscles, when in reality, we want to keep as much emphasis as possible on the target musculature, which in this case is going to be the glutes. The RDL, the Romanian deadlift. And this is going to be a bit of controversy here because people are going to pipe up and say, but Harry, the RDL doesn't target the hamstrings effectively. It really only targets the adductor magnus. But I'm going to counteract that. The adductor magnus is a muscle of the adductors that shares some functions with the hamstrings, such as hip extension and rotation. The adductor magnus is also located in very close proximity to the hamstrings, which is why people often confuse their stimulation during squat patterns for hamstring contribution. How many times have you heard somebody say that they can feel squats in their hamstrings when we know this isn't realistic due to biomechanics? And due to this, we also know that the adductor magnus helps stabilize the pelvis, which is why the hamstring sensation people often claim they feel is likely just the adductor magnus doing their job, pelvis stabilization. The RDL typically involves a degree of knee flexion, so a little bit of knee bend. Doing so helps drive the glutes into more of a lengthened position, as this is a lengthened dominant movement, which also contributes to the hamstrings experiencing active insufficiency. This essentially means that due to the slight knee bend, the amount of force the hamstrings can produce is now limited, which is why I often preach to bend your knees a tickle when doing like a 45-degree back extension, for example, when looking at biasing the glutes. And with the consideration that the hamstrings contribute to hip extension, but are also experiencing active insufficiency during an RDL, it does make sense as to why the adductor magnus would be considered a prime mover here due to the shared function of hip extension and lack of active insufficiency. However, there is a note to be made that although force may be limited, big keyword there, may, the hamstrings role during an RDL is still vital due to their contribution to hip extension and the degree to which the knee is bent. So yes, if you want to place more emphasis on the hamstrings alone, an SLDL, so a stiff leg deadlift with straighter legs, is likely going to be better. But if you want to place a bit more emphasis on the glutes and take some of that emphasis away from the hamstrings, an RDL is likely going to be better. But does this mean the glutes aren't working during an SLDL and that the hamstrings aren't working during an RDL? No, it simply means the emphasis is being shifted. Simplify like this: the more you straighten your legs, the more your hamstrings can be biased. The more you bend at the knees, the more your glutes can be biased. But ultimately, including a hip hinge variation like an RDL is going to keep a lot of tension on not only the glutes, but also the hamstrings and the adductor magnus, a term we've already used throughout this video, providing quite a lot of bang for your buck, especially when considering how you can alter this movement very easily simply by adjusting knee bend to cater to your preferences. And the key thing throughout this movement is think about your bum. Where are the hips traveling? When going down, we want the hips to drive back as much as possible. When the hips can no longer drive back, emphasis is now being shifted towards your lower back, which is why many of you may feel this in your lower back. Yes, the lower back is still going to be heavily involved, it's a hinge pattern, but we can reduce how much the lower back is involved and how much the lower back is fatiguing simply by monitoring how far the hips are traveling backwards and preventing us from going any lower when the hips stop traveling backwards. More range of motion isn't necessarily better here, it's more relevant range of motion. So think about your bum and think back, not simply down and up. The final big movement of the list here, we're looking at a hack squat. You do not need to hack squat. Any squat pattern is going to be a fair substitute for this, similar with a quad bias leg press, but I'm choosing to hack squat here. This is very much going to work the quads and the adductors, both in their length and range, especially if you're going deep enough. I'm a big fan when doing squat patterns or leg press patterns of going as low as you can within reason and maximizing knee flexion. Not only is this going to lengthen the quads a little bit more, which is pretty vital considering this is a lengthened position dominant movement, it's also going to bring more of the adductors into the mix as well. Bang for your buck. The reason why we're putting this near the end is because now you're a little bit fatigued. And with that fatigue, you're likely going to use less weight, which in turn means you're going to reduce the amount of spinal loading that is being experienced due to the fact that less weight is needed to achieve the desired result, which is training to, if not close to failure. And the reason why I'm opting for a hack squat over like a barbell squat, for example, or even a Smith machine squat, is simply due to stability and back support. When looking at effective movements when considering hypertrophy, we want to reduce as many limiting factors as possible. If my back is being stabilized, then my lower back, core in general, is less likely to fatigue first, thus less likely to present as a limiting factor, taking emphasis away from the target musculature, in this case primarily being the quads. And a big thing here, two big things actually. Firstly, no one cares how much you hack squat, no one cares how much you leg press. Do not neglect range of motion purely for ego lifting. It's not going to get you anywhere apart from maybe a one-way ticket to Snap City, which is a place I've been to multiple times myself and a place I never wish to visit again. The second thing here is keep the heels planted. One big thing I like to think about is driving my big toe, little toe and heel into the foot plate, which creates a triangle of pressure, thus helping me distribute that pressure across my midfoot, preventing my heels from lifting and shifting all of the emphasis over towards my toes and potentially placing a bit more emphasis than I would like to on my knees. Is it going to ruin the movement? Probably not, but it's probably not the best habit to get into, especially when considering long-term knee health. So keep your heels planted. As an added bonus here, what you can do is choose a 6th movement if you wish, and this is dependent on your goals. You can either choose a calf movement, in which I would favor a straight leg calf raise, or you can choose a glute med dominant movement, as a glute med is a muscle of the glutes that's commonly neglected and quite neglected throughout this workout, in which you can choose an abduction variation, so a machine abductor or a glute med kickback. So this is very much dependent on you and your goals. Like I said, if you want more calf work, chuck a calf movement in there. If you want more glute med work, or upper glute work we'll call it, chuck an abduction based movement in there. But you don't need to if you don't want to. And there you have it. I've now presented you with a leg workout that takes away all of the fluff stuff you see on social media and isolates simple but effective movements targeting the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, and even the adductors sufficiently, and certainly enough to promote stimulus for growth, provided you're training hard enough to, if not close to failure, I usually say between 0 and 2 RIR, so reps in reserve, and provided you're doing sufficient volume. So I would typically adopt probably 2 sets per movement, looking to do at least 2 leg workouts per week, if possible.
That's it. That is the video. I think oftentimes people overcomplicate many aspects of fitness that really don't need to be overcomplicated. And although there's not one size fits all, there are many ways to approach leg training or training in general, which ultimately is what I've done here. I've presented you with an idea of what a leg routine or lower body routine might look like if you're taking a relatively balanced approach. But again, this all depends on you and your goals. Until the next one, thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my waffle about chicken legs. And thank you for tolerating the video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Please click the link down below for TFNL coaching, which is always linked down below in the description in the comment section too. All you have to do is fill in the application form, which takes 2 minutes. I'll send you an email giving you some more information and details surrounding what TFNL coaching entails. We can hop on a free Zoom consultation call where we can talk for half an hour about leg training, chickens, and lifting, and then you can decide, no pressure, if this is something that appeals to you. Thanks, help me.